Picture this. The world outside is still cloaked in the pale gray of dawn, and I'm already here, perched at my desk with a chipped ceramic mug in my hand. The bitter warmth of coffee grounding me as the city hums to life beyond the glass walls of this towering office building. I'm Jade, 36 years old, a woman who's carved out a little corner of stability in a life that sometimes feels like it's moving too fast to hold on to. This desk, this chair, this endless stream of emails and schedules, they're my domain, my battlefield, where I fight the chaos of the corporate world one organized file at a time. I've been at this for years, working as an assistant in a bustling office smack in the heart of the city, where the air always smells faintly of exhaust and ambition. Every morning starts the same. I'm here before most, when the fluorescent lights are still flickering awake and the hum of the air conditioning is the only sound breaking the silence. I sip my coffee, black, no sugar, because I like the sharpness of it, and I dive into the routine that's become second nature. There's a stack of files to sort, meetings to schedule, emails to flag for Mr. Lawson before he even steps through the door. I'm the one who keeps the gears turning, the invisible hand that makes sure nothing slips through the cracks. It's not glamorous, but there's a quiet pride in it, knowing I'm the backbone of this operation, even if no one says it out loud. Home, though, that's where my heart really lives. Matthew, my husband of 8 years, is the kind of man who makes the world feel softer, safer. He's a freelance graphic designer, always hunched over his laptop in our tiny apartment, surrounded by sketches and empty coffee cups, chasing deadlines into the early hours. Our place isn't much, just a cramped one-bedroom with mismatched furniture and walls that could use a fresh coat of paint. But it's ours. We've built a life there, a steady rhythm of shared meals and quiet evenings, even if they're often interrupted by his late-night work sessions or my early mornings. I can still picture him now, his dark hair a mess, grinning at me over breakfast with that easy warmth that's never faded, not even after all these years. He's my anchor, the one constant in a world that sometimes feels like it's spinning just out of reach. But work, this office, it's a different beast. It's all sharp edges and high stakes, and at the center of it is Mr. Lawson, my boss. I saw him come in this morning, just as I was finishing up a calendar update. He moved through the office like a shadow, his tailored suit cutting a perfect silhouette against the chaos of cubicles and ringing phones. Those gray eyes of his, sharp as cut glass, swept over the room before landing on me for just a moment, long enough to make my breath catch, though I'd never admit it. There's something about him, a quiet intensity that seems to pull the air out of any room he's in. I shake off the thought as soon as it comes, focusing on the click of my keyboard as I type up the weekly reports. My days are a blur of tasks, answering emails with the kind of precision that's become my trademark, organizing spreadsheets until every number lines up just right, and making sure every document is ready to be delivered to Mr. Lawson's office without a single typo. It's mundane, sure, but there's a rhythm to it that keeps me grounded, keeps my mind from wandering too far. Still, there are moments that break through the monotony, little sparks that I can't quite ignore. Like earlier this week, when I brought a stack of signed contracts to his office. I knocked softly, waiting for his low, steady come in before stepping inside. The room smelled faintly of leather and cologne, and he was behind his desk, sleeves rolled up just enough to show the tension in his forearms as he scribbled notes on a legal pad. I handed over the papers, and as he took them, his fingers brushed against mine. It was nothing, really, just a fleeting touch, but it lingered a second longer than it should have. A jolt shot through me, sharp and unexpected, and I pulled my hand back a little too quickly, muttering something about getting back to my desk. He didn't say anything, just nodded, but I could feel his gaze on me as I turned to leave, heavy and unreadable. I've been replaying that moment more than I care to admit. It's ridiculous, I know. I'm a married woman, happily married, and yet there's this tiny, nagging part of me that keeps drifting back to the way his voice sounds when he says my name, or the way his presence seems to shift the energy in any space. I tell myself it's nothing, just harmless curiosity, a fleeting thought that doesn't mean a thing. But even as I try to brush it off, I catch myself wondering what's behind those guarded gray eyes, what he's thinking when he looks at me like that. At home, life with Matthew is the same as ever, a comforting routine that should be enough to drown out these stray thoughts. Last night, we cooked dinner together in our little kitchen, bumping into each other as we chopped vegetables and stirred sauce on the stove. He teased me about my terrible knife skills, and I laughed, flicking a bit of carrot at him, just to see that goofy grin spread across his face. Later, we curled up on the couch with a movie, some old rom-com we've seen a dozen times, his arm draped over my shoulder while I nestled into his side. It was perfect, or it should have been. But halfway through, my mind wandered, unbidden, to a meeting earlier that day. Mr. Lawson had been standing at the head of the conference room, going over quarterly projections, and at one point, his eyes locked on mine across the table. It was just for a split second, but it felt like an eternity, like the rest of the room just melted away. I'm not sure what it is about him that keeps pulling me in, but today, it all came crashing down in a way I never saw coming. It started like any other day, but the weight of it was heavier from the moment I stepped into the office. Deadlines were piling up like a storm cloud ready to burst, and I had a major presentation to finalize for a client meeting tomorrow. My desk was a battlefield of sticky notes and half-finished reports, and every tick of the clock felt like a countdown to disaster. I was running on fumes, fueled by too much coffee and too little sleep, my fingers flying over the keyboard as I tried to keep everything from unraveling. The office buzzed with the usual chaos, phones ringing, printers humming, voices overlapping in a frantic symphony, but I was in my own little bubble, hyper-focused, trying to hold it all together. Then, around late afternoon, Mr. Lawson called me into his office. His voice came through the intercom, calm but with that edge of authority that always makes my pulse quicken. "Jade, I need you to stay late tonight. We've got to finalize these documents before tomorrow. It can't wait." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, and muttered a quick, "Of course," before hanging up. Staying late wasn't unusual. It's part of the job. But something about the way he said it, the firmness wrapped in that casual tone, made my stomach twist in a way I couldn't quite name. As the day wound down, the office slowly emptied out. One by one, my coworkers grabbed their coats and bags, tossing out quick goodbyes as they headed for the elevators. Soon, it was just me and the hum of the air conditioning, the silence so thick it felt like it was pressing against my skin. I gathered the last of the documents, a thick stack of reports and contracts, and made my way to Mr. Lawson's office. The hallway felt longer than usual, each step echoing in the quiet, my heart thumping a little louder than it should have. I told myself it was just the stress of the day, the pressure of the deadlines, nothing more. When I stepped inside, he was at his desk, the glow of his computer screen casting sharp shadows across his face. The room was dimly lit, just the desk lamp and the faint city lights filtering through the blinds. I set the papers down, explaining a few key points about the revisions, my voice steady despite the nervous flutter in my chest. He listened, nodding occasionally, but his eyes were on me more than the documents, that piercing gray gaze cutting through the space between us. I felt exposed, like he could see right through the professional facade I'd spent years perfecting. As I finished, I noticed his teacup was empty, sitting off to the side of his desk. It was a small thing, but I've always prided myself on the little gestures that make the day smoother. So I offered to get him a fresh cup. He didn't object, just gave a slight nod, and I stepped out to the break room, my hands a little unsteady as I poured the hot water over the tea bag. When I returned, I set the cup down carefully, but my fingers trembled just enough that I nearly spilled it. He reached out at the same moment, his hand brushing against mine, not accidental this time, but slow, deliberate. The contact sent a shiver racing down my spine, sharp and electric, and I froze, unable to pull away. He didn't take the cup right away. Instead, he looked up at me, his eyes locking with mine, and in a voice so low it felt like a secret, he said, "You're the most precise thing in my chaos." The words hit me like a physical force, reverberating through every part of me, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The air in the room shifted, heavy with something I'd been trying to ignore for weeks, maybe longer. I should have stepped back, made some excuse, walked out of there before anything could happen. But I didn't. I stood there, caught in a moment that felt like it stretched on forever, suspended between what I knew was right and a pull I couldn't name. What happened next? I can barely bring myself to think about, let alone say out loud. It was a line crossed, a boundary shattered. And now, as I sit here at my desk in the empty office, the first light of dawn creeping through the windows, my body still hums with the memory of it. My hands tremble slightly, not from the cold, but from the weight of what I've done. I betrayed Matthew, betrayed myself, and yet there's this undercurrent of something else. Something I don't want to admit feels like power, like I've claimed a piece of something forbidden. I'm staring at the surface of my desk, the familiar clutter of pens and sticky notes blurred through tired eyes, when I notice it. A small, folded piece of paper tucked under the edge of my keyboard. My heart skips as I reach for it, recognizing the precise, angular handwriting before I even unfold it. It's from Mr. Lawson. My fingers hesitate for just a second before I open it, and there, in black ink, are the words that stop my breath. Now we both know boundaries are just words. The body is the truth. I read it again, and then again, each time feeling the weight of those words sink deeper into me. They're cryptic, loaded, like a riddle I'm not sure I want to solve. My mind spins, racing through every possible meaning. Is this an invitation to something more? A quiet acknowledgement of what happened? Or a warning that I've stepped into a game I don't fully understand? Maybe it's none of those things, just a cold, hard statement of fact that what we did wasn't a mistake, but a choice, deliberate and undeniable. I fold the note back up, but I can't let it go, my fingers tracing the creases as if they might reveal something more. There's a strange mix of emotions churning inside me. Empowerment. Because for once, I feel like I've broken free of the invisible chains of routine and expectation. But also unease. A gnawing sense that I've opened a door I can't close. His words strip away any pretense, any chance to pretend last night was a fluke. They confirm it was real, intentional, and now I'm left wondering what that means for us, for this office, for the dynamic that's always been so carefully balanced on the edge of professional and personal. I can still feel the ghost of his touch, the intensity of his gaze. And now these words. They're like a brand, marking the moment I can't take back. I lean back in my chair, the silence of the office pressing in around me, broken only by the faint hum of the city waking up outside. My eyes drift to the desk again, to the scattered papers that still bear the chaos of last night's work, and something more. There's a faint trace of his cologne lingering in the air, a scent that's become too familiar, too tied to the memory of his nearness. It's intoxicating and suffocating all at once, pulling me back to those stolen moments when everything else fell away. I shake my head, trying to clear it and start gathering my things, my bag, my coat, the keys that jingle too loudly in the quiet. Each small action feels mechanical, like I'm moving through a fog, but beneath it, there's a surge of adrenaline, a restless energy at the thought of seeing him again. Will it be today, when the office fills up with the usual bustle? Will his eyes meet mine across the room with that same unspoken weight, or will he act like nothing's changed? I don't know which I'm more afraid of. I sling my bag over my shoulder and head for the elevator, the fluorescent lights flickering above me as I move through the empty hallways. The ride down feels endless, each floor ticking by like a countdown to reality. When I step outside, the cool morning air hits me like a slap, sharp and bracing, but it does little to clear the haze in my mind. I slide into my car, the familiar creak of the driver's seat grounding me for a moment, but only just. The drive home feels like a blur. The city streets still quiet in the early dawn, the world unaware of the storm raging inside me. My hands grip the steering wheel a little too tight, my knuckles pale against the worn leather, as I navigate the familiar turns that lead back to the life I've built with Matthew. I don't know what I'm walking into, or what I'll feel when I see him. All I know is that I'm not the same woman who left this apartment yesterday morning. And that truth sits heavy in my chest, a weight I can't shake off. I pull into the parking spot outside our building, the engine ticking as it cools, and I sit there for a minute, staring at the chipped paint on the front door through the windshield. The sky is lightening now, a soft pink creeping over the horizon, and it feels almost cruel how beautiful it is, how indifferent the world seems to the mess I've made. I grab my bag and step out, the cold air biting at my skin as I make my way up the creaky stairs to our floor. My key turns in the lock with a quiet click, and I push the door open as softly as I can, not wanting to disturb the stillness inside. The apartment is dim, the early morning light filtering through the half-drawn curtains in thin, golden streaks. It catches on the edges of things, the corner of the couch, the rim of a coffee mug left on the counter from last night, and for a moment, everything looks so ordinary, so untouched by what I've done. I set my bag down by the door, my movements slow and deliberate, as if any sudden noise might shatter this fragile illusion of normalcy. My eyes drift toward the bedroom, the door slightly ajar, and I can hear the faint, rhythmic sound of Matthew's breathing from within. He's still asleep, unaware of the hours I've been gone, of the choices I've made in the dark. I step closer, my shoes silent against the worn hardwood, and pause in the doorway. There he is, lying on his side, one arm tucked under the pillow. His face relaxed in a way it never is when he's awake. The lines of stress from late-night deadlines and endless revisions are smoothed away, and he looks so peaceful, so trusting, that it almost hurts to watch him. I stand there for what feels like forever, just taking him in, the familiar mess of his dark hair falling over his forehead, the slow rise and fall of his chest under the thin blanket. My gaze shifts to the nightstand beside him, cluttered with his design sketches, a half-empty glass of water, and a crumpled receipt from the corner store. It's all so mundane, so achingly familiar, and yet it feels like I'm seeing it through a stranger's eyes. I should feel something, guilt, shame, regret, tearing through me like a tidal wave. I wait for it, brace myself for the ache that should come with standing here, looking at the man I've vowed to love and honor, knowing what I've done. But it doesn't come. My heart isn't racing with panic or remorse. It's steady, almost eerily calm, as if it's already made peace with the truth. I think back to last night, to the cold, sterile intensity of Mr. Lawson's office, the way the air seemed to hum with a dangerous energy, the way my body responded without hesitation. I contrast it with this quiet, warm space, this sanctuary I've built with Matthew. And I realize something that should terrify me, but doesn't. I don't regret it. Not even a little. There's no heaviness in my chest, no knot of dread twisting in my stomach. Instead, there's clarity, sharp and unyielding, like a veil has been ripped away, showing me a version of myself I didn't know existed until now. I liked what happened. I liked the rush of it, the way it felt to step outside the lines I've drawn around my life for so long. I liked the power in that choice, the way it made me feel alive in a way I haven't in years. And standing here, watching Matthew sleep, I know that this realization changes everything, even if he doesn't see it yet. I turn away from the bedroom door, my steps soft as I move toward the kitchen, needing to anchor myself in something mundane before the weight of my thoughts pulls me under completely. The linoleum is cool under my feet, and the faint smell of last night's dinner, garlic and herbs, still lingers in the air. I set the kettle on the stove, the quiet click of the burner igniting sounding louder than it should in the stillness. As the water begins to heat, I lean against the counter, staring at the chipped edge of a tile I've been meaning to fix for months. It's a small imperfection, one of many in this life I've built, but today it feels like a metaphor for something bigger, something cracked open inside me that I can't patch up with a quick trip to the hardware store. I pour the hot water into a mug, the steam curling up in lazy wisps, and drop in a coffee pod, watching the dark liquid swirl as it brews. The ritual of it is automatic, a series of motions I've done 1,000 times, but my mind is elsewhere, replaying the events of last night, the note still tucked into my bag, like a secret I'm not ready to let go of. I take a sip, the bitterness hitting my tongue, and it's almost a relief, a sharp reminder of the reality I'm standing in. I glance at the clock on the microwave, barely past 6. There's time before I need to head back to the office, time to pretend everything is normal, even if I know it's not. I hear a faint rustle from the bedroom, the sound of sheets shifting, and then Matthew's groggy voice calls out, "Jade? You home?" There's a warmth in his tone, sleepy and unguarded, that tugs at something deep inside me, but it's not enough to stir regret. I call back softly, "Yeah, just got in, making coffee." There's a pause, and then the creak of the bed as he gets up, his footsteps slow and uneven as he shuffles into the kitchen. He appears in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, his hair even messier than usual, wearing an old t-shirt with a faded band logo that's seen better days. He gives me a tired smile, the kind that used to make my heart skip in a different way, and asks, "How was the late night at work? You look beat." I turn to face him, leaning casually against the counter with the mug in my hands, and the lie slips out as easily as breathing. "It was just a grind, you know. Endless paperwork, last-minute revisions, nothing exciting." My voice is steady, my expression neutral, and I'm almost surprised at how effortless it feels to hide the truth. He nods, accepting it without a second thought, and mumbles, "You work too hard. They don't deserve you." There's a sincerity in his words that should sting, but it doesn't. He shuffles over to his little studio corner in the living room, already reaching for his laptop, muttering something about a deadline he needs to tackle before noon. I watch him go, the familiar sight of his hunched shoulders as he settles into his work, and I feel a strange detachment, like I'm observing a scene from someone else's life. Alone again, I carry my coffee to the small kitchen table by the window, the chair scraping softly against the floor as I sit. Outside, the city skyline is coming into sharper focus, the early morning light glinting off glass towers and concrete edges. It's a view I've seen countless times, but today it feels different, like I'm seeing the world through a new lens. My fingers absently trace the handle of the mug as my thoughts drift back to that folded piece of paper. To Mr. Lawson's words that keep echoing in my mind. Boundaries are just words. The body is the truth. I've turned that phrase over and over, dissecting it, and each time I come to the same conclusion. He's right. The lines I thought were so solid, between right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal, blur and shift, leaving me to realize that the only true boundary is the one I set for myself. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.